This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody. Billy Embody. 1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for joining me, guys, in our first one of the new year. Been a great time to recharge around the holiday. Hope you guys have all enjoyed it with family, friends, and all of that, whatever holiday you guys celebrate. We're happy to be back now with 2025. And we have a lot to get to on this podcast, resetting things for the transfer portal. SMU did pick up a few commitments since we were away as well. And so we've got a lot to talk about on that front. And I tell you what, guys, we're going to get to all that. But first, I got to remind you guys that it is just $1 for your first week to check out on theponyexpress.com. So join us. A lot of transfer portal news coming and going every single day. So make sure you're with us for that. And also, this podcast is presented by our friends, the Thomas Auto Group. Go to thomasautogroup.com and look at their entire catalog of pre-owned and new vehicles, and they can hook you up with employee pricing when you mention on theponyexpress.com. So Brandon Thomas, SMU alum, help him out, and he will get you guys hooked up in a beautiful vehicle for 2025. It's the perfect time to buy. Head up there to McKinney and set off of 75 and check out Thomas Auto Group, all their dealerships up there. We appreciate their support of the On the Pony Express podcast. All right, let's jump in here. A lot to get to on the transfer front, and we are going to break it down with the run of SMU commitments that have come through. And look, the last time we did a podcast, December 23rd, and we broke down some of the guys that had been committed at that point for SMU, and they've been busy with the dead period ending January 1st, technically. And January 2nd, the coaches did have guys on campus quickly after that. So it's been a busy run for the program, and they did see also a decommitment today. So the transfer portal world just continues to be wild. But let's go now to SMU's first commitment on the weekend, and the big guy came in from Purdue, and it's Damarjhe Lewis. He is a big defensive tackle who played for the Boilermakers the past 4 seasons. And he's been somebody that SMU has been after here as of late. He's had a big portal recruitment with programs like USC, Texas A&M, and others hosting him throughout this portal window. And SMU hosted him on a visit that wrapped up on Friday. And I actually reached out to him and said, hey, was wondering if you are getting closer to a decision or if you have other visits. And he said, actually, I need an edit. And I sent it to him. And 2 seconds later, he posted it on Twitter, and just kind of caught me a little bit by surprise Saturday when he did that, despite, me giving him the edit. He just turned it around real quick. Most guys have a plan. But after 4 years with the Boilermakers, he's set to play out what really could be his final year of eligibility, but potentially 2 years of eligibility, he told me, for the Mustangs. And he is I believe, a relatively new father as well. So we've seen some guys come into SMU and use NIL and use kind of that avenue as a way to support their family. And he started off in 2020 as a freshman at Indiana. He didn't play for the Hoosiers and ended up transferring to Purdue, where he played in 12 games with 3 starts in 2021. And then 2022, he missed the entire season due to injury. And then 2023, kind of the same story, appeared in 2 games and then, sustained another injury. And then this year, he was able to play in 5 games, 14 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and a block kick. So really kind of productive when he has been able to see the field and has grown up into a man at this point. And that's something that I think we saw SMU have success with in the ACC. And obviously Purdue had a tough go. But when you have guys that have been injured and you're looking to potentially give them a fresh start, this is the type of player that you got to take a chance on here. And with the defensive tackle market being what it is, I mean, SMU needed some wins at that position. And so they get two this weekend. One of them is a super high upside type of play. If they get 2 years out of Damarjhe Lewis, that is huge. If they get 2 productive years out of him. And at worst, he's a guy that you would hope could just give you 20 snaps a game and kind of help and just let guys get rest, let guys get opportunities to continue to, take care of their bodies. That's something that the defensive tackle position for SMU, they were able to do for the most part, even when they had injuries like a Tank Booker missing Louisville, or you had Jonathan Jefferson get banged up at Stanford and he missed the next game. I'm pretty sure if I had all that right, you had guys that could step up. And that's where Damarjhe Lewis, again, SMU has actually kept up a really good relationship with Kevin Kane, their former defensive coordinator. Some of the coaches know him pretty well. And so they have some good background on Lewis, his mindset, how he would fit. And this is somebody they felt really comfortable taking, truthfully. And so sometimes with the portal, you have to be able to get as much information as possible and be able to take care of all of the ways that you could get burned and try to mitigate risk. And so that's what SMU did when taking Damarjhe Lewis. They felt good about it, so they did. He is somebody that if he pans out to a 2021 type of level, if he pans out to when he was healthy in 2024, then maybe you can see him being a guy who pushes for serious snaps. But right now, he's going to be somebody that you would think would be a solid depth piece, 6'3", 300 pounds. And if he does have 2 years of eligibility, great, because SMU is going to lose Jonathan Jefferson after next year. And so you want to be able to take care of your future if you can when it comes to the portal. So nice addition for SMU if he's able to stay healthy. So also another Georgia guy who's coming to SMU from the transfer portal. They've got Zakai Barker. They've got Addison Nichols as well. So they've been able to assemble some Georgia natives on this roster. SMU wasn't done there picking up a Sunday commitment from a guy that I know, as the kids say, from pre-COVID. And that is Eric Taylor, defensive lineman from Mississippi State. No, he is not the head coach of the Dillon Panthers. He is a big defensive tackle, originally from the state of Alabama, ended up at LSU in 2020, and he did not play there, and then transferred to junior college, Southwest Mississippi Community College, played 2 seasons there, but really emerged in 2022 as a guy that Power 5 at the time programs went after. He ends up staying in Mississippi, signs with Mississippi State, plays in all 12 games. In 2023 was really emerging as a player late, even though, injuries kind of helped. But he came in to the 2024 season. That offseason was really supposed to be a key rotational guy for them. And then he didn't play in the first 2 games and sat out the rest of the year and entered the portal pretty quickly. He's listed 6'4", 290. He was listed on the roster this year for Mississippi State as a junior. But the cool thing about this one is if this junior college ruling, which makes junior college players' eligibility not count towards the NCAA, Eric Taylor could have 3 years of eligibility by my count. He had a free year in 2020 at LSU. He then redshirted in 21, which doesn't count because it's JUCO, and then JUCO season in 2022 doesn't count, and then he played in all 12 games in 23, and then he redshirted in 2024, which makes him, let's see, his birthday, April 23rd, 2021. So if he has 3 more years of eligibility, that would put him, he's going to be 24 in a couple months here, and that would put him 25, 26, maybe 27 by the time he gets out of college, if he plays all 3 years at SMU or even somewhere else. So what a dream. We're going to be calling him not Eric Taylor, but Van Wilder here by the end. But no, I think this is another example of somebody who's been able to play in the SEC, and he has certainly hung around. There was high expectations for him going into this season from state. And in the spring, he was really talked about as a guy that was going to be leaned on. And for whatever reason, it did not work out. And so he has an opportunity at SMU where he can find himself. And I think that's something that, again, this is a depth take. This is to check the box, because right now you have Jonathan Jefferson as a starter. You've gotten Damarjhe Lewis and now Eric Taylor behind him. You have guys like Blake Burris. You have Mike Sanjo coming back. You've got some younger players like Kevin Allen. Tyrone Winslow will be in. That interior, like there's depth now at the very minimum, and a proven starter type in Jonathan Jefferson. But where I'm going with this is SMU has the ability to take guys who didn't get the right opportunity at their prior school. Look at Jonathan Jefferson. Didn't get the right combination of, I think, coaching and love at their prior school, like Tank Booker. I mean, we've talked about it here and there, but Tank was a guy that they really had to work on when he got here from a confidence standpoint. He just kind of been beaten down. And I haven't talked with Eric Taylor in a long time, since he was coming out of Hewitt-Trussville in Alabama and kind of post-transfer at LSU. But, I mean, I'm sure he's somebody who's kind of been through it all at this point. And so if you get into this environment with SMU's culture, they will bet on that 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. And that's the reality of some of these transfers that they do bring in that, are more of the projectable, hey, we like this body type. We've seen him be able to do a little bit. He's either been hurt or he's been someone who, hasn't panned out for whatever reason. And we'll bet on our culture to help them get on the right mindset to then be productive and take advantage of the new opportunity they have. And that's what they're doing with Eric Taylor and Damarjhe Lewis. So SMU gets two big bodies, much needed. And we'll see how it goes with those. And so they do address the defensive line position with those two. And they're working to address it as well. I'll note one guy that did also visit with Damarjhe Lewis, but it does look like, as of now, trending to Auburn, which would be a return to Auburn. It's Jeffrey Embody, who is originally from France, was the number one junior college prospect in the country. Played in 24 games for Purdue, made 46 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and a sack. And Auburn and USC were coming after him. SMU did have him on campus, but it seems like Auburn is closing in on getting him back. And there were also multiple other visitors on the defensive line that SMU had on campus. So it's a good time to subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com and get more on what you need to know on the portal. I can tell you it's a great time to be on the site. Before we go any further, I do want to remind you guys that we are presented by Northwest Insurance Agency. Mark Villasana, SMU alum, big SMU football fan, supporter of SMU football, 214-352-5656. He can help you with your auto, home, business, bonds, fleet auto, life insurance. He'll sit down and talk with you. He'll talk some SMU football with you, and then look at your policies, look at your coverage, see if you can obviously save some money, and he can help you out in that regard. But he can also just make sure that you are covered the best you possibly can be. And we've had a bunch of subscribers actually and listeners on the pod. Give him a ring at 214-352-5656 or email him mark@nwagencies.com, and he'll just look at it for you and let you know what he can do for you and help you out in the insurance world, because rates are too high right now. And Mark Villasana is independent insurance agency with Northwest Insurance Agency that can help you out and lower your rate and get you the best coverage possible. So he'll fight for you. Check him out. And he's a proud supporter of the On the Pony Express podcast now. All right, on to the bad news, and then we'll kind of do an odds and ends and look at where SMU stands overall in the portal. But SMU did see a decommitment happen on Monday, just as I was getting ready to record this. And this is something that's kind of been brewing for the last couple weeks. It's really something where this is the weird just part of the portal. And Chasen Johnson is now flipped back to UCF, and I mean, it's just a mess, quite honestly. So about a week or so ago, I finally caught wind of it, but Chasen Johnson was kind of evaluating all of his options. He was a guy that SMU flipped from USC. He's originally from Florida, played for UCF, one of the top cornerbacks in the transfer portal, and SMU, again, flipped him, was really excited about him. And then you see that he releases online that he's going to be going back to UCF. And it's just one of those weird deals where I don't really know the exact reasoning, because you have a guy who flips his original commitment kind of shortly after ending up, a USC commit. He flips to SMU. He had 4 years to play 3 seasons, which is a huge deal. He was a starter down the stretch for UCF. He had 18 tackles. He had 2 pass breakups over his final 5 games. He had a bunch of programs after him. He took a bunch of visits. And then he ends up flipping back to UCF. I'm sure there was NIL involved here. And at the end of the day, what I can say about this is SMU's not going to beg kids to come here. I mean, they were in the college football playoff. They had one of the best defenses in the country. And if they had a hole on that defense, everybody knows it was in the secondary. So Chasen Johnson, after Brandon Crosby leaves, perfect opportunity to come in and start. Now, he would have been a starter for UCF, but he portaled. Their defensive coordinator, I believe, left or got fired. But they did hire Alex Grinch, who Oklahoma fans will tell you is just fantastic. But he gets signed on to be the defensive coordinator. UCF pulls him back in. And the game's the game. He wasn't sitting in an SMU classroom. And I think that's something that, colleges across the country are going to start to try to do, or when these true contracts and rev sharing contracts get into place. I mean, you're going to see these things be more unbreakable, because SMU had to release him from his LOI for this to happen as well. So, but SMU's not going to beg guys to be here. And so we see Chasen Johnson move on. And that's unfortunate for SMU. But what I can tell you, and it's another reason to be at ontheponyexpress.com, is they're not sitting on their hands. They're hosting guys. They did have a defensive back on campus. So we'll continue to monitor that for you guys, but we'll kind of keep that name quiet for now. But this is not something SMU was caught off guard by, which is why they were able to, stay on their feet and bring guys in for visits. So they really like where they're at long term in terms of cornerback. They just need a proven guy to kind of come in and really step up. And I think that's worth noting when you look at the long term position outlook. I mean, you look at who they signed. You look at the young guys on the roster. It's a position that's night and day compared to what they walked into when they were hired, 3 years ago. And they've really upgraded the talent and found guys that want to play hard and do all those things for them. So we will continue to keep an eye on that. But just kind of unfortunate for SMU. That's just the hard part about the transfer portal is it's really not over until they're sitting in a classroom, which is silly compared to, high school guys that can sign and then they're locked in, even though they can enter the portal, but it's just kind of a mess. So that is where SMU is at with Chasen Johnson, who decommits and ultimately decides to stay back home with UCF. So SMU's working on it. That is one of their positions of need now. And that's why also, if you read our piece on kind of resetting the stage for the transfer portal, that's where I also noted, hey, the luxury would be, adding another secondary guy. Well, most would look at the secondary and say, oh, look at what they have coming back. Look at they have Chasen Johnson. I kind of even put it in there just to kind of preemptively say they're still looking, but they're not shutting it down. But yeah, that is where we're at. So the portal continues to just deliver on all the drama in the world. So with that, guys, want to remind you guys that Status Jet is where SMU fans got to go for the Pony Up ACC discount. SMU's playing at North Carolina on Tuesday night. Give them a call. StatusJet.com. Reach out to David Henry and his team. See if there's a last-minute flight that they can get you on. You and a group of friends head up to the Smith Center. See SMU take on North Carolina. This is going to be really cool. I'm excited to go to Chapel Hill Tuesday and get a chance to watch SMU play UNC, which is really, really, I mean, the basketball piece of all of this is so cool for SMU fans. So there's plenty more trips. There's Notre Dame. There's FSU. And right around spring break time, you can go to Fort Walton Beach, Mary Esther, Destin, right in the Florida Panhandle there, and then swing over there on that weekend for when SMU plays FSU. So a lot of trips that Status Jet can help you out with. And again, they'll give you a discount on a round trip flight with that code PonyUpACC or mention on the ponyexpress.com, and they'll hook you up. They're proud supporters of SMU athletics as well. They flew the band and cheer and everybody up to State College. So they get it done for SMU athletics as well. All right. On to what's the rest of the transfer portal looking like for SMU. And the big news, I would say, out of the weekend came when ESPN's Pete Thamel reported going into the weekend, I think it was Friday, that Tyler Van Dyke, a familiar name for SMU fans that have long been portal nerds, was going to be visiting SMU and was pretty off the radar for me. Truthfully, I hadn't asked because I thought it'd be more of a spring thing potentially for SMU, but SMU did get him on campus. He was at the SMU Duke game with De'Aaron King. He had his best years under Rhett Lashlee when he was at Miami. Now he's a former Wisconsin quarterback recovering from a torn ACL. And if he's not ready in 2025, he can take a medical and then be ready to go in 2026. And that is his last year of eligibility. And he knows he's got to nail it. I mean, Tyler Van Dyke was one of the hottest names in the country in 2021. And when Rhett Lashlee was there and he kind of emerged as a true top-end signal caller in the ACC, and he was the backup for De'Aaron King. So they've got a good relationship, but also a unique one. And I mean, he had a huge season when De'Aaron went down with his injury. So this is a guy that SMU is very familiar with. They have a great relationship with. And he's somebody that, you know, long-term for SMU could be, you know, thrust into a starting quarterback competition in 2026 if Kevin Jennings has a huge year. Look, there's a lot Kevin has to get better at and improve on. And realistically, with what the NFL kind of trends have shown, the longer you stay in college as a quarterback, the more it helps you get reps and helps you get opportunities to learn and grow and be a little bit more successful at playing the position overall. So with Kevin, that said, if he has a huge year next year and decides, all right, I'm going to go give it a go, my draft stock might not be that high in the future, or got to capitalize on this for whatever reason, SMU is not going to be caught flat-footed in 2026. And I said this on the board, but I think it's a great example. SMU, whenever Kevin Jennings leaves, is going to have, as of now, Keldrick Luster, Tyler Aronson, and Ty Hawkins on campus at the quarterback position. What they're probably going to have is a pretty unproven player at that position. And entering by that point, would that be year 5 of the Rhett Lashlee era? The 2026 season can't be lost because you're figuring out your quarterback. Just like the Permian Panthers couldn't see their season lost because Boobie Miles got hurt. Like that? Friday Night Lights. Love it. So SMU is always going to stay on the offensive when it comes to the quarterback position. And Rhett Lashlee and his staff over the last however many seasons have played multiple quarterbacks due to injury, due to whatever. And they will always stockpile talent at the position, and especially talent like Tyler Van Dyke, who they trust in a big way. So, and then all that said, if Tyler Van Dyke is on the roster in 2026 and Kevin Jennings is as well, Tyler Van Dyke can probably just transfer at that point. He can be healthy. He'll get a glowing report from Rhett Lashlee and the staff. If that's where his game's at, they can get him opportunities or what have you. All the different things that this staff can do to help Tyler Van Dyke, that's a part of their whole pitch. It's not, hey, coming in 2025, compete with Kevin Jennings. We're unsure about him. Trust me. And I should have led with that. But that is not where it's at. That's not what this is about. This is about insurance policies, and that is about as good of an insurance policy as you could get if you can get it done. So he was on campus this past weekend. We'll see how it goes. SMU is always going to take looks at quarterbacks. They're always going to have that discussion. It's just a matter of if it's the right fit, the right situation. And Tyler Van Dyke, that would certainly be the right situation for SMU to take a guy like him and just stash him. He's kind of like a keeper league. Just get him on campus, let him get back to full health and be a great guy in the room with the chemistry and all those things. And he would help really push the younger guys too. So that's why they brought him in. It's a good opportunity for him to learn and not necessarily learn, but get back on track. And he's a big name, but that was a huge piece of news that came out of the weekend was Tyler Van Dyke visiting. So SMU is not done in the transfer portal. I did post kind of what's next on the board, and there are a bunch of other positions that they're always going to take a look at, but one that they're not done with at all is the defensive line room. And TJ Lindsey, a guy I'm familiar with as well, former Auburn defensive lineman and 4-star prospect out of high school and IMG Academy, is on campus for a visit Monday, and he got in Sunday night, and SMU's battling the likes of Nebraska and others for him. USC's kicked the tires on him, and he played 1 year at Auburn. So he'll have 4 full years of eligibility remaining, which is a huge, huge deal in the portal world. And also just trying to get a guy who is from Bryan, Arkansas, by the way. So a little bit closer to Dallas than Auburn, which would, help him at least, get family over there to games on the hilltop. But he's somebody that SMU actually went after late in the cycle when he was coming out of high school. He played for IMG Academy, and he did swing through campus March 20th, 2023. He ends up ultimately signing with Auburn, but a 4-star defensive lineman who I don't know if he got recruited over. I don't think so. I mean, he's a guy that got an appearance for Auburn this year, and they were in a rebuilding mode, but I'm just not too familiar with their roster and kind of where it was at. But, for TJ Lindsey, he's now got a chance to go somewhere else and get a new opportunity, and we'll see how it goes, because he's a big body who could help, and he's got some athleticism. He was an all-state basketball guy, listed 6'3", 295. And so if you get him, then you get somebody that really can help, solidify the room long-term. You really wanted another defensive lineman, interior guy from the high school ranks, but they ended up just coming away with Tyrone Winslow. They had Cam Collins. He ends up moving on. And so they knew they really wanted to just kind of, stick with what they had at that point, just throw it all at the portal. And so with TJ Lindsey, this would be a huge addition, I think, long-term. And again, the athleticism screams that he should be a guy that, pans out for the program. And if you can get him in the ACC, let him loose and see how it goes. So then I would think then you take one final shot at a starter level player. And they did have one on campus over the weekend. Big kid. He's got some other visits. He's closing in on a decision. Again, subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com for just $1. That'll all kind of come together here in the coming days, and we'll see where SMU stands after that. But if they can get that guy and then TJ Lindsey, boom, you're done. Like you are really done. And then you see in the spring what comes to fruition for you in that room, whether it be hey, we're really, Mike Sanjo's in a much better place, and Blake Burris is developing, and this guy and that guy. What else do we need? Well, Jared Harrison Hunt came in the spring came committed in the spring to SMU and ended up coming over the summer. Maybe the market's in a different situation. Maybe there's more clarity on the house settlement, because what's going on right now is college football teams are throwing all sorts of money at players that is outside of the realm of rev share and kind of the traditional money that has normally been spent, because most schools are seeing this as a last ditch effort. And I'm working on SMU's New Year's resolutions. There's just quite honestly so much news popping up that we got to do this, do that. So, but a more fun piece, but one of the pieces or one of the points I'm going to make in the New Year's resolution is, man, when it comes time for the spring portal window, SMU needs someone, and there's nothing like spending someone else's money, but SMU needs someone to step up. And many other people need to step up as well when it comes to the collectives and NIL money, because SMU is not in the position where the major donors that are donating the tens of millions of dollars over and over again, that this grassroots program that SMU had with Pony Sports DTX and then the Boulevard Collective came along, that still needs to be a major part of what SMU needs to do. And that's the reality. The best programs out there in terms of the portal, in terms of recruiting, have the grassroots thing down. And not to oversimplify it, but you can make it NIL and do all those things, but you have to have the grassroots kind of bag style recruiting. You got to have it down. And SMU, with the Boulevard Collective taking a major role, a bigger role, has seen a huge positive, which is roster retention is A1. Like, they have not lost anyone that they wanted to keep. You could argue they wanted to keep Preston Stone, but it wasn't going to happen. But everyone else, they've kept. They've made it through the portal window. If somebody graduates this spring and wants to move on, that could be something that we see happen. But as of now, they feel really, really good at every position as far as putting together the roster with the guys that are staying. Their retention is unbelievable. And credit to the Boulevard Collective, credit to Pony Sports helping out a little bit there. But where SMU has to maybe make a little bit of a resolution here is, this is the last opportunity without any sort of true government oversight or any major rule changes. And you've seen Texas Tech do this, where they've got a couple of key donors that are really just spending a bunch of money. But SMU has to, by spring, if things are still at least the same, find a way to have someone or a small group step up and say, let's go make a couple of huge splashes to round out this roster. And you can do it with a starting defense tackle. You can do it with a starting left tackle. You could do it with an elite wide receiver. That's where, look, if I had oodles of money and I was a donor at any school, man, I would be sponsor number one of, the left tackle for such and such college. That'd be my guy. And everyone would know, man, shout out Billy for always looking out. And he went out and spent his hard-earned money for an elite left tackle so that the quarterback never sweats a drop back there. You could get a small group. You can get a circle of left tackle champions going. But that would be my New Year's resolution for SMU, is to kind of get the grassroots-ness of it going a little bit more and motivate people and say, hey, look at what Tech did. Look at what Ole Miss has done. They've been one of the better portal teams as of late. Look at what such and such and such and such have done. There are opportunities out there for SMU to make a splash come the spring, because the opportunities are kind of dwindling here. There's still plenty of time left in the portal. Don't get me wrong, but the Boulevard Collective is more shrouded in secrecy, and no one's looking for a press release of who they signed, what they did, amount, years, all those things. But one of the cool things that when SMU was rolling in the portal was that there was excitement among the fan base, because there were fans and there were donors that were supporting NIL and they felt involved. And in a small school like SMU, that's where you have to hit when it comes to fundraising. And it goes for anything at the university when it comes to fundraising. That's one of my, that would be one of my changes, if I was involved in that regard, is you have to make this small community, this tight-knit group, you got to make people feel involved. And then they're willing to stretch and go a little bit more of the extra mile for you. That's my opinion. There are plenty of people, and we know them well. The Armstrongs, the Millers, the Wares, the list kind of goes on in that regard. The Hunts, so many more Kleinerts and whatever. And I'm going to forget people or leave people out, but there are so many people that are high level that support in those ways, Flanagan's and others. But the people that can donate 5 figures to NIL and some 6 figures to NIL, they might stretch a little bit more for you if you involve them a little bit more. And that's where SMU can make those splashes and has made those splashes in the past. And even with the market this year being out of control when it comes to money, that resolution for me would be to get back to that a little bit. Because the Boulevard Collective, kudos to them. They've got a bunch of money. They've retained a bunch of people, but they are also outsourced. They pay somebody a salary and they collect based on how much they raise. And so there's got to be a little bit of this is a school that you have to have personal involvement in. You have to feel personally connected. And you look at like a Scott Natty, a D. West, coaches on the staff that have grown to love this university. And that's most of the staff. I mean, really. But you have to like live it at SMU. And that's where if you have somebody who lives it, that can really get things rolling, that's where things can turn into a snowball effect of portal recruiting and portal success. We've seen it. It's tried and true. So SMU sits here with a really good haul of transfers. They have addressed needs. They've addressed the interior of the offensive line at a high level. They had addressed the cornerback position. They have addressed all 4 spots on the defensive line, at least with 1 player now. And they've addressed linebacker. They got a starting linebacker in there. They need to make a splash here late in the cycle and find a way to get those kind of couple of next level pieces. And time is of the essence. Add drop date for SMU coming up in a couple weeks. Portal window is closing for some schools really soon here. Those schools that played around December 31st, January 1st, it's pretty much done. You won't see many more of those guys be entering the portal. But there's still college football playoff teams that'll lose guys here in the coming days and weeks when they get eliminated. So be ready to strike, be ready to take advantage. SMU's done a good job navigating the murky waters of like defensive line where it's a mess in terms of money for value. It's an absolute train wreck. But come spring, be ready to roll. And be ready to roll and address your needs because you've spent a bunch of money on your quarterback. You've spent a bunch of money retaining a really good roster. You know, the slots on the depth chart, you're not taking guys off that haven't graduated. You're not having to run in there and be like, oh man, so-and-so left. All right, here we go. Now we got to do this. No, you've seen the natural progression of this program now where guys are going to be able to take bigger roles, step into it, and do all of those things. And that's a huge positive. But there also needs to be that splash here and there for SMU to take next season and capitalize on it. Because you return a lot more than people give SMU credit for. You return a lot of talent. That got you to Charlotte. That got you to the college football playoff. But you've got to make a couple splashes so that next year's team is set up in a better situation to make a splash and win in Charlotte and win in the college football playoff. And it doesn't mean if they don't get there, it doesn't mean the season is completely lost. And if they, go 9-3, like that's a really good year. Even 8-4, losing as much as they have on defense, I mean, wouldn't shock people. But look, this is a team that knows how to win. They've got a great culture, and there's something to be said for that. So you need to give them a couple more weapons to push this roster up a notch, just a little bit more. Because I think it's better than it gets credit for, but it also needs a couple more star kind of players. And again, nothing like trying to spend other people's money, but it's just, there's that fine line, as we saw, when you face some really elite talent at certain positions and what it can do to you. That's why it's a tough loss for Chasen Johnson, staying back home at UCF. That's why they need to find a left tackle. You need Andrew Chamblee to have a huge, huge offseason. That's why they need defensive tackle to take a couple more steps up in transfer recruiting. And then you can figure it all out in the spring and say, okay, we really like this guy, like that guy. That seems like it's on track, blah, 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 blah. But for now, you got to be planning to be able to make a splash when it counts come the spring, unless you got something real good up your sleeve here late at the defensive tackle position where it's an absolute no-brainer, type of ad. I mean, Jared Harrison Hunt is what SMU should be hunting for come the spring at a couple different positions. So I think SMU's done a really good job, though, with the additions that they have. Again, they signed a huge high school class, so this is a group that I think it was kind of going to be misleading in a sense of, when you look at, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 transfer commits right now. By week's end, we could be looking at 10, and we'll see how that goes. And then you look ahead of the spring, and if there's any attrition, then you could see it going to 15 to 20, which we'll see. But I had it around 15, 20 because that's generally where they've played in the sandbox with. It's going to take a huge effort from the staff, and the staff is now going to hit the road here, recruiting 26s, also be able to in-home with some transfers with the dead period totally gone outside of a few days around the national championship. So it's contact period. It's a ton of fun to be at ontheponyexpress.com. So hope you guys enjoyed this first podcast of 2025, kind of laying the groundwork for where SMU is at in the portal. Again, check out ontheponyexpress.com. There's a lot more news and nuggets on there as well. And also reach out to our friends at AKM Turf and Greens today, and they can get your yard looking just right. It is an incredible feeling when you go in your backyard and you don't have to do anything to it, from a yard mowing or have somebody really maintaining it. Alex Carpenter and his team, email them info@akmturfandgreens.com and mention On the Pony Express or code PONYUP for $500 off your project today. They'll get your backyard looking right and all set up just in time for the spring. And once we're through this cold, you'll be able to enjoy it, whether it's a putting green or just turf yard for you and your family, your friends to enjoy. They'll get it looking A1. So look, guys, that's all I've got. We'll have a podcast later this week. We'll talk more SMU basketball. We'll talk SMU basketball recruiting, some top recruits on campus. We'll get back to some mailbag stuff. We'll get back to premium pods. Want to do that now that we're out of the season and kind of the grind of that. But appreciate Northwest Insurance Agency, Thomas Auto Group, Status Jet, and AKM Turf and Greens, of course, for all their support of the On the Pony Express podcast. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We will catch you guys later this week with another edition. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU on3 and on Instagram at on3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.